Amos chapter 6. Page 614 in the scriptures, if you're in that translation. A couple of y'all have asked in the comments, they're like, hey Bear, I'm not as quick at flipping through the book as you are. If you could start giving page numbers for reference, that'd be cool. So I'll try and remember. I resolve to do better. How's that? All right, Amos 6, 7, 8, and 9 comprise 1, 2, 3 pages of scripture, and be it Yah's will, we'll get through all of them in a relatively timely manner. What do our videos run? 30 to 90 minutes, so I guess we'll find out, right? And Amos is traditionally accepted to be broken into like 3 different parts. And this last portion here, 6, 7, 8, 9, the nice people who went to seminary and wear blazers call this the judgments. I'm going to call it the get your poop in a group section of Amos. So let's let Yah speak. Amos 6, page 614. Woe to those at ease in Zion, and those trusting in Mount Shomeron, and the distinguished ones among the chief nations, to whom the house of Israel comes. Pass over to Calneh, and see, and from there go to Hamath the great. Then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are you better than these reigns, or is their border greater than your border? You who are putting off the evil of the day, yet bring near the seat of violence, who are lying on beds of ivory, and are stretched out on your couches, and are eating lambs from the flock and calves from the midst of the stall, who are singing to the sound of the harp, having composed songs to themselves like David, who are drinking wine from bowls and anoint with the finest ointments, yet they have not been pained over the breach of Joseph. Therefore they shall now go into exile, with the first of the exiles, and the feasting of the stretched out ones shall cease. The Master Yahweh has sworn by himself. Yahweh Elohim of hosts declares, I am loathing the pride of Jacob, of Jacob, and I've hated his palaces. Therefore I shall deliver up the city and all that is in it. And it shall be that if 10 men remain in one house, they shall die. And if an uncle or his undertaker brings out the remains of the house, he shall say to the one inside, Is anyone with you? And he says, No. Then he shall say, Hush, for we have not remembered the name of Yahweh. For look, Yahweh is commanding, and he shall strike the great house with breaches, and the little house with clefts. Do horses run on a rock? Does one plow it with oxen? For you have turned right ruling into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. You who are rejoicing over a matter of naught, who say, Have we not taken horns for ourselves by our strength? For look, I am raising up a nation against you, O house of Israel, declares Yahweh Elohim of hosts, and they shall oppress you from the entrance of Hamath to the Wadi Arabah. I have a strange feeling like I've read this before, and I have, maybe a dozen times, but I feel like I've read it on camera before. So if we've already done 6 on camera before, just hang with me, and then we'll get to 7. I don't think we have, though. Maybe I just dreamt it. Been a little sleep deprived as of late. So, woe to those at ease in Zion. Zion, Yisrael, the land over there. At ease. You who are comfortable in your lethargy and your box checker mentality, worship and religion rather than relationship with Elohim. And those trusting in Shomeron, capital of the 10 northern tribes, the house of Yisrael of Israel, the place of false worship, under bad leadership, see Ahab and Jezebel et al. Shomeron is not where they're supposed to worship, not where they're supposed to put their faith. They're supposed to go up to Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, where the Father put his name, not to Shomeron after the 2 houses split. The distinguished ones among the chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel comes. They're supposed to go to Yahweh, or to the priesthood, the distinguished ones of Israel. They're supposed to go to Jerusalem, to the temple, to Elohim. not to Shomeron. And there's some compare contrast here in verse 2. Hey, are you better than all these other nations? No, you're not. And proof text on that is Deuteronomy 8-ish. He's not giving the Israelites the land because the Israelites are all that. He's giving them the land because even though they suck just like everybody else, they are his chosen people. You who are putting off the day of evil, yet bring near the seat of violence. Putting off the day of evil. You're kicking the can down the road, but by your inaction, your lethargy, your ease, you're actually accelerating, bringing near the seat of violence. We're lying on beds of ivory, stretched out on your couches, eating lambs and flocks from the calves in the midst of the stall, eating, singing, who are drinking wine from bowls and anoint with the finest ointments, yet they have not been pained over the breach of Joseph. Their focus is on the worldly things, not on the spiritual matters, not on Elohim for sure. They're paying attention to the wrong things. They have prioritized the wrong things in their life. Therefore, they shall now go into exile. 721 BC, the Assyrian exile. And because of that, the feasting of the stretched out ones shall cease. And so this has been an underlying tone of Amos to this point. Hey, if you guys don't get your poop in a group, Dad's going to put us in exile. He's going to kick us out of the house. And they're like, that would never happen. Dad doesn't kick us out of the house because it hasn't happened yet at the time of Amos's writing. It's a cornerstone of a prophet. Hey, bad stuff's going to happen. Well, that's never happened before, or that couldn't possibly happen. See, I am doing a new work, says Yahweh. Even though there are absolutely patterns and cycles in this word. The Master Yahweh has sworn by himself, Yahweh Elohim of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth, the general. I am loathing the pride of Jacob, of Jacob, and I have hated his palaces. Therefore I shall deliver up the city and all that is in it. The pride. You got a Proverbs in your Bible? I bet you do. How about Proverbs 6:16? These 6 matters Yahweh hates, and 7 are abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands shedding innocent blood, a heart devising wicked schemes, page 734. Feet quick to run to evil, a false witness breathing out lies, and one who causes strife among brothers. These are abominations to Yahweh. How about Proverbs 3, if we go back just a little bit? "3:33. The curse of Yahweh is on the house of the wrong, but he blesses the home of the righteous. He certainly scoffs the scoffers, but gives favor to the humble. The wise do inherit esteem, but fools are bearing away shame." Pride, not a good attribute. You see our core values up here on the wall. The first is be humble, right? Remember who you are. Remember who's in charge. Remember who is Elohim. It's not me. Verse 9, and it shall be if 10 men remain in one house, they shall die. This harkens all the way back to Genesis 18 with Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember, Abraham is negotiating, attempting to, with Elohim. Would you destroy it if there were 50 righteous men? No. 40? No. 30? No. 20? No. Would you destroy it if there were 10 righteous men? No, I would not destroy it if there were 10 righteous men. But I'm going to destroy it. What's the takeaway here? There aren't 10 righteous men in Sodom. Same thing here. And it shall be that if 10 men remain in one house, they shall die. The implication is they are not righteous. And this is Israel that he's talking about. His people are not righteous. And if an uncle or his undertaker brings out the remains of the house, he shall say to the one inside, is anyone with you? And he says, no. Remember, Israel's supposed to be as numerous as the sands of the seashore. Is anyone with you? No. Then he shall say, hush, for we have not remembered the name of Yahweh. What's the name? Yod-He Vav-He. Matthew 22:36. Love the Lord your God with everything you've got. Yahweh your Elohim with everything you've got. All your heart, with all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. and love your neighbor as yourself. On this hangs all the Torah and the prophets. We've forgotten his name. We've forgotten what it means. They probably also literally forgot it because they weren't speaking it, which means they weren't using it because of their largesse, because of their false worship in Shomeron. For look, Yahweh is commanding, and he shall strike the house with breaches, the great house with breaches, and the little house with clefts. 2 houses, great house, little house, Judah and Israel, 10 tribes, 2 tribes. Ezekiel 37 stuff here. Do horses run on a rock? Does one plow it with oxen? For you have turned right ruling into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. Horses running on a rock doesn't make sense. Not going to get anywhere very far, right? Not good. Can you plow rocks with oxen? Not well. Talk about being demoralized, trying to plow a rocky field with a pair of oxen and a plow. You make no progress. For you have turned right ruling into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. Here's this wormwood again. It goes back to Numbers chapter 5, the ritual for a woman suspected of adultery. Adultery is physically being unfaithful. Whoring. Idolatry is spiritually being unfaithful to Elohim. You who are rejoicing over a matter of naught, who say, have we not taken horns for ourselves by our own strength? Horns represent power, especially in prophecy. If we look at Deuteronomy 8, Deut 8, page 195, verse 17. You then shall say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand have made for me this wealth. Remember, they're lazy, laying on their couches, eating lambs, drinking wine. But you shall remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth in order to establish his covenant which he swore to your fathers as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yahweh your Elohim, and follow other mighty ones, and serve them and bow yourself to them, Shomeron, I have warned you this day, you shall certainly perish. Like the nations which Yahweh is destroying before you, so you are to perish, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. For look, I am raising up a nation against you. This is Assyria. Vengeance is mine, so saith Yahweh. But he uses subcontractors quite regularly. And in this case, Assyria. O house of Israel, declares Yahweh Elohim of hosts, and they shall oppress you from the entrance of Hamat to the Wadi Arabah. Chapter 7. This is what the Master Yahweh showed me, and see, he was forming locust swarms at the beginning of the late crop, and see, it was the late crop after the mowing of the king. And it came to be, when they had finished eating the grass of the land, that I said, O Master Yahweh, forgive, I pray. How does Jacob survive, for he is small? Yahweh relented concerning this. It shall not be, said Yahweh. This is what the Master Yahweh showed me, and see, the Master Yahweh was calling to contend by fire, and it consumed the great deep, and did consume the portion. And I said, O Master Yahweh, please stop. How does Jacob survive, for he is small? Yahweh relented concerning this. This shall not be either, said the Master Yahweh. This is what he showed me, and see, Yahweh stood on a wall made with a plumb line in his hand. And Yahweh said to me, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a plumb line. And Yahweh said, see, I'm setting a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. No longer do I pardon them. And the high places of Isaac shall be laid waste, and the set apart places of Israel shall be destroyed. And I shall rise with the sword against the house of Jeroboam. Then Amaziah, the priest of Beit El, sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is not able to endure his words. For this is what Amos said, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall certainly be exiled from their own land. And Amaziah said to Amos, Go, you seer. Prophets were previously called seers. Flee to the land of Judah and eat bread and prophesy there. But do not prophesy any more at Beit El, for it is the king's set-apart place, and it is the house of the reign. And Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I am not a prophet, nor am I the son of a prophet, for I am a herdsman and a grower of sycamore figs. But Yahweh took me from behind the flock, and Yahweh said to me, Go, prophesy to my people Israel. And now hear the word of Yahweh. You were saying, Do not prophesy against Israel, do not drop words against the house of Isaac. Therefore thus said Yahweh, Your wife shall become a whore, and your sons and your daughters fall by the sword. And your land is to be divided by a measuring line, and you die in a defiled land, and Israel shall certainly be exiled from its land. Verse 1. This is what the Master Yahweh showed me, and see, he was forming locust swarms at the beginning of the late crop. And see, it was the late crop after the mowing of the king. The king is not supposed to be over the Israelites. They're brothers. His constituents are his brothers. Leadership is required, but he's not to oppress the people. So what does the king have a mowing? And then we've got the late crop, what's left over for everybody else. And of course the locusts are just going to swallow it up. And Amos is like, please, Father Yah, no. How does Jacob survive? For he is small. Now, a remnant is small, but remember, Jacob, Israel, Jacob is supposed to be as numerous as the sands of the seashore. Why aren't they? Disobedience, Deuteronomy 28 stuff. But Yah relented and said, it shall not be. Locusts are famine. And this is what the Master Yahweh showed me, and see, the Master was calling to contend by fire, and it consumed the great deep, and did consume the portion. How was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? By fire. And I said, oh, Master Yahweh, please stop. By the way, we've got Revelation 8 imagery in the fire, and Revelation 9 imagery in the locust swarm. And I said, oh, Master Yahweh, please stop. How does Jacob survive? For he is small. Yahweh relented concerning this. This shall not be either, said the Master Yahweh. This is what he showed me. And see, Yahweh stood on a wall made with a plumb line in his hand. What is a plumb line? If you've ever done any construction, you have a string, and on the end of the string you tie a weight. And you hold the string up, and that weight will point the string, will make the string perfectly perpendicular to the ground, perfectly vertically aligned. Very basic, very powerful tool. Are you perfectly vertically aligned? Are you upright? Or are you skewed to the left or to the right? Are you bent? Are you crooked? That's what a plumb line shows you. It's a very basic, very powerful tool. This plumb line and this measuring line also ties back to Ezekiel 40 through 48, the building of Ezekiel's temple. But it's a very easy tool. It's a very, how shall we say? It's simple for comparison's sake to discern sin. What did Paul say? I knew not sin but by the law. And there's a wall here. Yah stood on a wall made with a plumb line. So the wall is perfect and upright. And he had a plumb line in his hand. Why? Why a wall? Well, sin goes outside the gate. Gate implies wall. Right? And this wall is perfect. And then, of course, you can fast forward to the end of Revelation. There's a wall around Jerusalem, the holy city, where Yah makes his name dwell, which literally becomes heaven on earth. And see, I'm setting a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. No longer do I pardon them. Now they know what upright is. You don't have an excuse anymore. not cutting you any more slack. And in verse 9 here, and the high places of Isaac shall be laid waste. Now this is the only book in the Bible where Isaac is used as a descriptor for his offspring, for Israel. So that's who we're talking about here. And all the high places of Isaac of Israel shall be laid waste. The high places. Remember, we can read it elsewhere. Yahuwah treads in the high places. But these high places are where the Israelites were worshiping their false gods. And so it's like, it's an affront to Yah in his own house. The whole world's his house. But especially in the high places. And so he's destroying them, their false worship. And the set apart places of Israel shall be destroyed. The holy places of Israel shall be destroyed. There's only one holy place of Israel. Jerusalem, the temple, where he makes his name dwell. And I shall rise with sword against the house of Jeroboam, who was the king of Israel, I believe. Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is not able to endure all his words. A prophet is not revered in his own country. Heard that before? For this is what Amos said, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall be exiled from their own land. So Amaziah is snitching on Amos to the king, to Jeroboam, king of Israel. And Amaziah said to Amos, Go, you seer, flee to the land of Judah, and eat bread and prophesy there. Now remember, Amos was from Tekoa, pick your translation, which was on the northern side of the southern kingdom, butting up to the southern side of the northern kingdom. It's right there on the border between the two, as is Beit El, not far from there. Beit El means literally the house of Elohim. But it had become like where the king's palace was, and also a place of false worship. So now we're revering the king and pagan gods in the house of Elohim. Boy, does that sound familiar in today's Big C Christianity. And so Amos calls them out, and they don't want to hear it. They can't bear the words. I'm not being very Christian, brother, bringing an accusation like that. Well, you're wrong. And notice here the interplay between the priest, who should know, and the prophet, who's just a simple man who does know because he knows Elohim. There's a very powerful lesson in that. I don't care if somebody's a pastor, a priest, a rabbi, a bishop, a pope, a rabbi. Do you speak the words of Elohim? And if the answer is no, you have no power and authority. None. In fact, it's in the Shoftim Torah portion. Do not fear that person. Fear means to deeply respect. And Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I am not a prophet, nor am I a son of a prophet. So they had prophet schools, and he was not of those prophet schools of the prophets. Or was he the son of a prophet? And we've talked previously about the genealogical relationship between Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, who came later from Amos. But Amos wasn't any of these people. For I am a herdsman and a grower of sycamore figs. Simple man. Simple does not mean stupid. In fact, oftentimes simple is much harder than complicated, because simple requires discipline. But Yahuwah took me from behind the flock, and Yahuwah said to me, Go prophesy to my people Israel. And now hear the word of Yahuwah. You are saying, Do not prophesy against Israel, and do not drop words against the house of Isaac. There's that house of Isaac again. Therefore thus said Yahuwah, because you wouldn't listen to the simple man of Elohim. You were caught up in your own priestly bullshit. Your wife shall become a whore in this city, and your sons and daughters fall by the sword, and your land be divided by a measuring line, and you die in a defiled land, and Israel shall certainly be exiled from its land, because the Assyrians are coming, as we saw in 6 verse 14. I'm raising up a nation against you, O house of Israel, because you did not listen. Again, you could call this portion, Get Your Poop in a Group. Chapter 8. This is what the Master Yahweh showed me, and see, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. And Yahweh said to me, the end has come upon my people Israel, no longer do I pardon them. And the songs of the Hekal shall be wailing in that day, declares the Master Yahweh. Many dead bodies everywhere, thrown into any place. Hush. Hear this, you who are swallowing up the needy, to do away with the poor of the land, saying, when does the new moon pass, so that we shall sell grain, and the Sabbath, so that we trade our wheat, to make the ephah small and the shekel large, and to falsify the scales by deceit, to buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and sell the chaff of the wheat? Yahweh has sworn by the excellency of Jacob, I shall never forget any of their works. Shall the land not tremble for this, and everyone mourn who dwells in it? And all of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Mitzrayim. And it shall be in that day, declares the Master Yahweh, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness. And shall turn your festivals into mourning, and all your songs into lamentation, and bring sackcloth on all loins, and baldness on every head, and shall make it like mourning for an only son, and its end like a day of bitterness. See, days are coming, declares Yahweh, the Master Yahweh, that I shall send a hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread, nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the words of Yahweh. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north to east, and they shall diligently search, seeking the word of Yahweh, but they shall not find it. In that day, the beautiful maidens and strong young men shall faint from thirst. Those swearing by the guilt of Shomron, who say, as your mighty one lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives. And they shall fall and never rise again. So in verse 1, this is what the Master Yahweh showed me, a basket of summer fruit. It's lost in translation here, but the idea here is that the fruit is ripe. It's the end of a season. It's time to pick the fruit. It's coming to a conclusion. The timeline is quickening. And he said, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. And Yahweh said to me, the end has come, the quickening, upon my people Israel. No longer do I pardon them. And the songs of the Hekal, the temple, shall be wailing in that day, declares the Master Yahweh. Many dead bodies everywhere, thrown into any place. Hush. Why would a loving God do this? He told them what to do. They didn't do it. He told them what to do and was merciful towards them over and over and over again. And they didn't do it. They did what they wanted to do. Woe to those at ease in Zion and those trusting in Mount Shomeron. They did what they wanted to do, not what Yah wanted them to do. Hear this, you who are swallowing up the needy, and to do away with the poor of the land. We're commanded to let none amongst us be poor, forsake not the widow and the orphan. But instead, they're hanging on their couches and their beds, eating lambs and calves and drinking wine and singing, turning a blind eye and a blind ear, and we'll get to that blind ear again in a moment, a deaf ear, to the needs of their people. Love your neighbor as yourself. See, the two prime directives, love Yahweh with everything you got, not doing it. Love your neighbor as yourself, not doing it. Saying, when does the new moon pass so that we sell grain? See, they're making a mockery of the Sabbaths here. And the Sabbath so that we trade our wheat. Hey, when's sundown? I got to get busy. I got work to do. And to make the ephah small, so the measure small, and the shekel large. Unequal weights and measures are an abomination to Yahweh. That's not allowable. And to falsify the scales by deceit. To buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and sell the chaff of the wheat. the dregs. The stuff that's barely useful. There's no nutritional value in chaff. It's the straw. Yahuwah has sworn by the excellency of Jacob, which is by himself. He is the excellency of Jacob. So he's sworn by himself. I shall never forget any of their works. There's a book in the New Testament called Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 10, page 1170. For Elohim is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have shown towards his name, and that you have attended to the set-apart ones and still attend. So Yah remembers our good works, Hebrews 6, and our bad works, Amos 8. I shall never forget any of their works. Shall the land not tremble for this? Because of all the bullcrap they've been doing, shouldn't the land be trembling by this point? And all of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Mitzrayim. Like when a river overflows its banks, the turbulence that comes from that. I don't know if you've ever seen a flood, a major river flood. It's devastation. It's very uncertain. It's chaos. And it shall be in that day, declares the Master Yahuwah, Revelation 8 imagery, Matthew 24 imagery, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness. Now, prophetic for sure. Amos is prophesying here. But also, this was written approximately, when was it? 765 BC. Around 765 BC. There was, in Amos's time while he was alive, in 784 BC, there was an eclipse. And in 763 BC, 2 years after this was written, there was an eclipse. You can all the way go down the rabbit hole with that. Now, Amos, I am not a prophet, nor am I the son of a prophet. I am a herdsman and a grower of sycamore figs. I don't think Amos was familiar with the Enochian calendar and the study of the sky. Now, as a shepherd, you would know what the sky looked like. And we know that signs and appointed times, that's why we have the moon, the sun, and the stars. That's all the way back in the beginning of the book in Genesis. But when Amos prophesied there would be an eclipse, I don't think that he knew in 2 years from now there will be an eclipse. I believe that was Yah speaking through him. And it probably in his day served almost immediately as a witness that what he was saying was true. And it shall be in that day, declares the Master Yahuwah, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness, and shall turn your festivals into mourning, and all of your songs into lamentations, and bring sackcloth on all loins. And it, by the way, this is prophetic of Yeshua. And baldness on every head, and shall make it like mourning for an only son, and its end like a day of bitterness. So Yah becomes flesh, gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall have life everlasting. Right? John 3:16. The end of Yeshua's ministry was bitterness. The end of an age will be bitterness for those that aren't Team Yeshua. And bring sackcloth on all loins and baldness on every head, and every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. And it shall make it like a mourning, like they're mourning the loss of. Yeah. This goes back to that day of the Lord thing that everybody who doesn't read their Bibles is super excited about, and everybody who does read their Bibles is like, oh boy, that's going to be a rough one. See, the days are coming, declares the Master Yahuwah, that I shall send a hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread, nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the words of Yahuwah. Matthew 4:4. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word of Elohim. Every word of Elohim. It was nailed to the cross and done away with. Every word of Elohim. And they shall wander from sea to sea and from north to east, and they shall diligently search, seeking the word of Yahuwah, but they shall not find it. In that day, the beautiful maidens and the strong young men shall faint from thirst. Those swearing by the guilt of Shomeron, who say, as the mighty one lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives, and they shall fall and never rise again. Dan was directly involved in pagan worship. That's why you don't see him sealed in the forehead in Revelation 7. Beersheba was the well of the oath dug by Abraham, and also turns into a place of pagan worship. And people are searching, they're thirsting. There's a famine for the word of Elohim, hearing the word of Elohim. Now, what's the implication here? I'd say it's twofold. One, nobody is speaking the word of Elohim. But also, no one is hearing the word of Elohim. Praise Yah, we don't have that problem today, because people are speaking the word of Elohim. They are hearing the word of Elohim. But it's a remnant, bro. It's oh, Master Yahuwah, forgive, I pray. How does Jacob, how does Israel survive? For he is small. Yeah, we're small. We're small. Those who are hearing the word of Elohim, it's a small group of people. Those who are speaking the word of Elohim, it's a small group of people. But never underestimate what a small group of highly motivated individuals can do. Gideon had 300. Gideon had 300. Elijah was alone when he took out 450 prophets of Baal. Abraham had 318 men of his own house and wrecked 9 kings and giants in the valley of Siddim. David had a 43-man special forces team. Small groups of people, highly motivated, I would say righteously operating the will of Elohim, are not to be underestimated. Small means nimble. Small means speed. Small means the ability to maneuver. That's good. A remnant is small. And now chapter 9. I saw Yahuwah standing by the slaughter place, and he said, so first, I guess we'll read and we'll do commentary. Strike the column head so that the thresholds shake, and break them off by the head, all of them, and the last of them I kill with the sword. Not one of them fleeing gets away, and not one fugitive of them escapes. If they dig into Sheol, into hell, into the place of the dead, from there my hand does take them. If they climb up into the heavens, from there I bring them down. And if they hide themselves on top of Carmel, from there I shall search and take them. And if they hide from before my eyes at the bottom of the sea, from there I shall command the serpent, and it shall bite them. And if they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I shall command the sword, and it shall kill them. And I shall set my eyes on them for evil, and not for good. And the Master Yahuwah of hosts is he who touches the earth so that it melts, and all who dwell in it mourn. And all of it come up like the river, and subside like the river of Mitzrayim. Who is building his upper room in the heavens, and has founded his firmament on the earth, who is calling for the waters of the sea, and pours them out on the face of the earth. Yahuwah is his name. Are you not like the people of Cush to me, Ethiopia? O children of Israel, declares Yahuwah, did I not bring up Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and Aram from Kir? Look, the eyes of the Master Yahuwah are on the sinful reign, and I shall destroy it from the face of the earth, except that I do not completely destroy the house of Jacob, declares Yahuwah. For look, I am commanding, and I sift the house of Israel among all the nations as one sifts with a sieve, yet not one grain falls to the ground. All the sinners of my people are going to die by the sword. Those who are saying, evil does not overtake us nor meet us. In that day I shall raise up the booth of David, which has fallen down. And I shall repair its breaches and raise up its ruins, and I shall build it as of the days of old, so that they possess the remnant of Edom, and all nations on whom my name is called, declares Yahweh, who does this. Look, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him who sows seed, and the mountains shall drip new wine, and the hills melt. And I shall turn back the captivity of my people Israel. They shall build waste cities, waste cities, and inhabit them. And they shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them, and shall make gardens and eat their fruit. And I shall plant them on their own soil, and not uproot them any more from their own soil I have given them, said Yahweh, your Elohim. Verse 1. I saw Yahweh standing by the slaughter place. First of all, I saw Yahweh. No man can look upon my face and live. What a blessing. What an opportunity for Amos, this simple man, a herdsman and a grower of sycamore figs. Did he see Yah's face? Did he see his form? What an opportunity. What a blessing. Standing where? By the slaughter place. There's a slaughter place in heaven. Read Revelation. All this stuff that everybody says is nailed to the cross, done away with. The Levitical substitutionary sacrificial system is non-existent anymore. We don't have to do it. Yah's standing at a slaughter place in Amos and in Revelation. Consistency. I'm the Lord Yahweh Sabaoth. I change not. This whole done away with, nailed to the cross thing is just complete and utter pure bullshit. And it comes from Hasatan. It comes from the enemy. It comes from Satan. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Strike the column heads so that the thresholds shake, and break them off by the head, all of them. And the last of them I kill with the sword. Not one of them fleeing gets away, and not one fugitive of them escapes. But if you go down into hell, or up into heaven, or to the highest mountain, or to the depths of the sea, Yah will find you. And if they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I command the sword, and it shall kill them. I shall set my eyes on them for evil and not for good. Remember Deuteronomy 28, blessings and curses? Fundamental chapter. If you haven't read Deuteronomy 28, you need to. You need to read it, understand it, internalize it. If you are obedient, then you will be blessed. If you are disobedient, then you will be cursed. Very simple. If you are obedient to the law of gravity and don't jump off of tall buildings, you won't be cursed with broken legs. You'll be blessed with mobility. If you're disobedient and climb up onto a tall building and jump off and transgress the law of gravity, your disobedience will bring the curse of busted legs, collapsed lungs, broken skull, death. It's baked in. The Torah is baked in, just like gravity is baked into the world. Deuteronomy 28. You can also read Leviticus 26, 23 through 25. Shall we turn there? Yes, we shall. Leviticus 26. That would be page 134. And if you are not instructed by me, by these, but walk contrary to me, then I shall also walk contrary to you, and I myself shall strike you 7 times for your sins. And I shall bring against you a sword, executing the vengeance of my covenant. And you shall gather together in your cities, and I shall send pestilence among you, and you shall be given into the hand of the enemy. When I've cut off your supply of bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, and they shall bring back to you your bread by weight, and you shall eat it and not be satisfied. And it goes on and on and on. That whole Leviticus 26 portion is because they weren't keeping the Shemitah year, allowing the land to observe its rest, and which is like fundamental to this cycle of rest. Every 7, there's a rest. 7 days, 7 years, 7 millennia, there's a rest. They weren't doing it. And so the Father exiles them so that the land may rest. And they're exiled for a period of time to make up for the Shemitah year, the year of rest that they did not take while they were in the land. Verse 5, 9:5, page 616. And the Master Yahweh of hosts is he who touches the earth so that it melts, and all who dwell on it mourn. So that it melt, bro. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean the ice is melting? The earth itself is melting? Is this fire and molten hot magma? Is this Matthew 24 tectonic plate Pangea stuff? I don't know. But it doesn't sound good. Is it thermonuclear war? I don't know. It doesn't sound good, though. Yah's pissed. Are you not like the people of Cush, of Ethiopia, to me, O children of Israel, declares Yahweh? Did I not bring up Israel from the land of Mitzrayim? Just like the Philistines from Caphtor and the Arameans from Kir? It's like, this harkens back to Deuteronomy 8. You're not that special. Israel is inheriting the land because they're Yah's chosen people, not because they're awesome. As evidenced by the fact that they're getting their pee-pee schwacked by Dad right here in 6, 7, 8, and 9 in Amos. Look, the eyes of the Master Yahweh are on the sinful reign. That's Israel. They're supposed to be his people. We are supposed to be his people. And instead he's looking upon a sinful reign, a sinful kingdom. And I shall destroy it from the face of the earth, except that I do not completely destroy the house of Jacob, of Jacob, declares Yahweh. For look, I am commanding, and I shall sift the house of Israel from all the nations, as one sifts with the sieve, yet not a grain falls to the ground, separating the wheat from the chaff. Where have you heard that before? I'm telling you, I am convinced. Everything Yeshua said in the four Gospels, synoptic Gospels, is Torah, prophets, Psalms, and Proverbs. All of it. Every parable, every teaching, every rebuke, all of it. Amos right here, separating the wheat from the chaff, as Yah sifts with a sieve, and not one grain falls to the ground. So everything of value will be set aside, set apart, retained by Yah. But the rest of it is destroyed. Check this out, verse 10. All the sinners of my people are going to die by the sword. Those who are saying evil does not overtake us nor meet us. My God would never do that. We don't have to follow the law anymore. It's nailed to the cross. That there is no judgment. We, by grace through faith, lest any man should boast. We're good to go, man. Love the sinner, hate the sin. All the sinners of my people are going to die by the sword. Those who are saying evil does not overtake us nor meet us. And now we're future tense prophetic here. In that day, I shall raise up the booth of David, which has fallen down. Now, we have Solomon's temple, which is then rebuilt by Nehemiah, which is then destroyed in 70 AD, after the time of Yeshua. And then the third temple has not been built yet. Ezekiel 40 through 48. That temple hasn't been built yet. And, you know, what we're here. Whatever. We'll do 60 seconds on this. There's a lot of people who are concerned that we are either in or on the cusp of end times. We are not in end times. There's no way. There's no way, based upon what's in the book of Revelation, that we are currently in end times. We could be knocking on the door of it. I'm not entirely convinced. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is the sign of the woman in Revelation 12, which happened December 21st, 2012. That was allegedly a once in every 5,000 year conjunction. You know, the Virgo, the woman in the sky, and she's got the planet in her belly and the crown on her head. Remember all that? Yeah, it turns out that actually happens about once every 300 years. not every 5 to 6,000 years. So it's not nearly as uncommon as we thought it was. Also, the abomination of desolation prophesied by the prophet Daniel and quoted by Messiah in Matthew 24 requires that the evening sacrifices and daily sacrifices have to have been reestablished in order for them to be interrupted, which requires a temple, which is why the Yehudim, the Jews, are looking for the red heifer without spot or blemish so that they can cleanse the temple site, so that they can rededicate the temple site to begin daily offerings, daily and evening offerings. But Ezekiel's temple hasn't been built yet. And Ezekiel's temple was a physical temple. Not a spiritual temple, not an allegorical, metaphorical temple. It's a physical temple. The temple that we see in Revelation 21:22 comes down out of the heavens. And it's Yah. It's where Yah is, where we read right here in the beginning of verse 9, and I saw Yahuwah standing by the slaughter place. It's Yah's temple, which is what the physical temple on earth is patterned after. Remember when Moshe's up on the mountain with Yahuwah, and he says, build this in the pattern that I showed you on the mountain. That was the tabernacle, right? You could read in Colossians 2, which is a shadow of what is to come, eating and drinking in Sabbaths and high holy days. That is a shadow of what is to come in Christ. And this is the body of Christ, Colossians chapter 2, which means eat and drink and do Shabbat and high holy days and the new moon, because this is the body of Christ and a shadow of what is to come. My point is, Ezekiel is a physical temple, not a spiritual temple. So Ezekiel's temple hasn't been built yet. And I don't know, I'm not prophesying and I'm not preaching from a pulpit on this, but I think Ezekiel's temple has to be built first in order for the daily sacrifices to begin again, so that they can be interrupted per the book of Daniel in the model of Antiochus 4 Epiphanies. Go watch the Daniel videos. The Antichrist, which we know is the man of lawlessness, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, to interrupt the daily sacrifices so that, as warned in Matthew 24 by Messiah, the abomination of desolation can take place so that those who are in Judea can flee to the wilderness, because then things kick off. Then the 7 years begin. And back to that sign, the woman in Revelation 12, that happens about every 300 years. So we could be 288 years away from that. Or it could happen tomorrow. I don't know. And I also am not convinced that anybody does know. And I am very, very skeptical about air quote prophets in the day of TikTok and social media. No, unimpressed. Because Amos wrote this book 2,700 plus years ago, almost 2,800 years ago. And some of his prophecies, not all, but some of his prophecies have not come true yet. Which goes back to the veracity of this book as a whole, the Bible, which means if Ezekiel's temple is a physical temple, it hasn't been built yet. Where is it? It doesn't exist yet. In that day, 9 verse 11, in that day I shall raise up the booth of David which is fallen down, and I shall repair its breaches and raise up its ruins, and I shall build it as in the days of old, so that they possess the remnant of Edom and all nations on whom my name is called. All nations. This goes back to the promise, the covenant made with Abraham in Genesis, and your seed shall be the esteem of all nations. It's three blessings. One, your seed will be as the sands of the seashore. There'll be so many of you, you can't be counted. Well, think about all the believers in Messiah, right? Who are Israel. Ephesians chapter 2 is your proof text there. Okay, this is the sands of the seashore. And you will possess the gates of your enemies. Cool. Be victorious in battle. Overcoming, by the way. Overcoming and to overcome. And will be the esteem, the glory of all nations. So that they possess the remnant of Edom and all the nations on whom my name is called. All the nations on whom my name is called. Israel, the chosen people. Yeah, but everybody has the opportunity to join Israel. Do you believe Yeshua is HaMashiach? Oh, I I thought Israel was like Jews over there in the Middle East. No, that's what Satan wants you to believe. Because Satan's whole MO is, did God really say? Israel is a people group. Genesis 32, Ephesians chapter 2, Romans 11. Read them. Do the work. Don't take my word for it. Don't trust me. Trust Elohim. Pray over the word. Ask the Spirit to be indwelt in you and read it with a fresh set of eyes. Israel is the Father's chosen people, and He is a righteous and just God. We all have access to that. Not just some Jews over in the Middle East. The Israel in the Middle East is a secular nation. They don't mention Elohim one time in their founding documents. Only 25% of the millions of people who live there are even practicing Jews. It's the second largest homosexual population behind New York City is Tel Aviv. They're not making Yah smile. That's not His chosen place or His chosen people. Not based upon how they're behaving. Look, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him who sows seed. And the mountains shall drip new wine, and the hills melt. This is like springtime to me. Remember, we had summer fruit, then winter, this destruction that has come, and now springtime. And I shall turn back the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. And they shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them, and shall make gardens and eat their fruit. And I shall plant them on their own soil, and not uproot them any more from their own soil I have given them, said Yahuwah, your Elohim. If you read the end of the book, we are all going back to Israel. We're all going to Jerusalem at one point. Whether you're alive or whether you're resurrected for judgment, whether I'm alive or resurrected for judgment, we are all ending up back at Jerusalem. Revelation 21:22. That is the entirety of the book of Amos. I hope you boys and girls enjoyed this. Thanks for bearing with me. We're on to Obadiah next. It'll be a quick one. Obadiah 1. It's a page. And of course, we've got Jonah. And we've got Micah. We're making progress, y'all. Oh, I'll say this as well. I get a lot of comments that are like, Bear, what about insert Bible verse or chapter or book here? We, together, have read every word of the New Testament from Matthew chapter 1 to Revelation chapter 22 on camera. And we've now read all of the Old Testament. All of the Old Testament. From Genesis chapter 1 through Amos chapter 9 together. If we go in here and just look, we have approximately, if you look at the screen, this much left to read together. About 15%. We're about 85% complete with this Bible. Praise the Most High. And anecdotally, when we get done reading this together on camera, I'm up in the air about whether I will begin the Torah portions for Gen Pop here on YouTube or the extra biblical texts. Probably Torah portions first, which will be a year-long cycle of the 52 weekly Torah portions and the spring portion, spring feast portion, fall feast portion. So 54 portions there, and then probably Jasher, Jubilees, Enoch. We'll probably start in Jubilees, then do Jasher, then do Enoch. And by that point, I mean, we're years down the road from there. We're not at a decision point for a while. But praise Yah that He's allowed us to make it this far. And the current strategic goal is to read every word of this Bible on camera. And so before you leave a question asking me, but Bear, what about YouTube search bar, Bear Independent, that chapter and verse? I probably have a video on it. I appreciate y'all. Have a blessed day. Shalom.